History is often told in maps, treaties, and the biographies of generals. It's measured in miles gained and casualties counted, but the real texture of history, the smell of the rain, the trembling of a hand, the silence before the mortar full stat is usually lost. Our journey today begins not in a museum, but in a dusty estate sale in Ohio. Inside a battered cardboard box labeled simply, France, 1944. Inside are not the famous press photos of General Eisenhower or the panoramic shots of Omaha Beach. Instead, we find blurry, candid snapshots taken by unauthorized cameras, contraband Kodaks smuggled in rucksacks. These are the echoes. Through 5 of these newly unearthed photographs, we will reconstruct the untold narrative of the American GI in Normandy, reclaiming the quiet heroism that has been overshadowed by the noise of blockbuster history. The first story isn't one of violence, but of an agonizing stillness. Look at this photo. 3 men sitting on a crate, likely in a staging area in England. Late May, 1944. These are privates Elias Thorne, Miller Vance, and a man known only as Smitty. They aren't cleaning rifles or studying maps. They are simply staring at the ground. The grand narrative of D-Day focuses on the invasion itself, forgetting the weeks of containment that preceded it. These men were sealed into sausages, barbed wire encampments, where contact with the outside world was severed to preserve secrecy. Elias Thorne, a farmhand from Nebraska, looks calm, but a letter found with the photograph reveals his internal turmoil. He wasn't afraid of dying. He was afraid of vanishing. He wrote about the metallic taste of the air and the overwhelming noise of thousands of men trying to be quiet. This photo reclaims the story of the psychological burden of waiting. It captures the moment when young Americans realized their youth was over. Suspended in a purgatory of damp English fog, they were miles from the channel. It fell light years from home. The untold story here is the camaraderie of silence. How men learned to comfort one another without speaking, sharing the weight of impending doom just by sitting shoulder to shoulder on a crate of ammunition. This second photograph transports us from the beaches to the Bocage, the hedgerow country of Normandy. History books mention the hedgerows as obstacles, but this photo reveals them as monsters. The image is claustrophobic, taken from a low angle, looking up through a dense tangle of roots and earth. It shows an American sergeant, face smeared with dirt, sleeping in a hole dug directly into the root system of an ancient hedge. This is the untold story of the vertical war. In Normandy, the fighting wasn't just horizontal across fields. It was a vertical struggle against thousand-year-old earthen walls, impenetrable to tank fire. This photo reclaims the narrative of improvisation. Notice what the soldier is holding. A welded piece of scrap metal, a makeshift periscope. This detail is crucial. It highlights the ingenuity of the American GI. When grand strategy failed, it was individual soldiers, the mechanics and welders from Detroit and Pittsburgh, who invented the rhino attachments to cut through the hedges. This photo tells the story of a high-tech army forced to fight a primitive, medieval style of warfare. It speaks to the terror of not being able to see 10 feet in front of you. It's a testament to a localized, lonely war where a single squad could be pinned down for days, fighting their own private battle for a single field of cows. War is usually depicted through the lens of the destroyer. This photograph forces us to look through the lens of the healer. It's a close-up shot of hands wrapping a bandage around a knee. The face of the wounded man is cut off. The focus is entirely on the medic's hands. These hands belong to Corporal Thomas Holloway, a piano teacher from Brooklyn before the draft. The untold story here is the trauma of the savior. We often speak of PTSD regarding combatants, but medics absorb the visceral horror of Normandy without the catharsis of fighting back. Holloway's hands are steady in the photo, but his diary, archived years later, describes the phantom trembling that would plague him for decades. This image reclaims the narrative of tenderness amidst brutality. In a landscape of steel and fire, the medic represented the only softness. The photo captures a moment of intimacy, the cleaning of a wound, the gentle pressure of a bandage. It reminds us that for every man pulling a trigger, there was another trying to stitch the world back together. It highlights the quiet heroism of unarmed men running into kill zones, armed only with morphine and gauze, driven by a profound love for their fellow soldiers. This next photograph bridges the gap between the liberator and the liberated. It's a wide shot of a ruined French farmhouse. In the shadowed doorway, A small French girl stands holding a distinctively American chocolate bar. An American jeep is partially visible in the foreground. The American narrative of Normandy is often insular, focusing solely on U.S. troops. This image reclaims the story of the collision of worlds. The soldier who took this photo wasn't documenting a battle. He was documenting a connection. The untold story is the cultural shock experienced by young Americans, many of whom had never left their home states, suddenly thrust into a devastatingly beautiful and broken Europe. The girl in the doorway represents the civilian costs of liberation. The chocolate bar is a symbol of the diplomacy of calories. American GIs, many raised in the Great Depression, saw themselves in the hungry faces of French children. They gave away their rations, not out of regulation, but out of instinct. This photo echoes the confusing reality. The joy of liberation, mixed with the shame of destruction. The Americans bombed these towns to save them. The soldier in the jeep likely destroyed this girl's home, yet now he feeds her. It is a complex, bittersweet narrative of guilt, gratitude, and the fleeting moments of humanity shared between people who shared no language, only the wreckage of war. Our final photograph brings us to the most profound echo of all: the attempt to translate hell into words. Here, a soldier sits on a pile of rubble, writing on a pad of paper using his helmet as a desk. The sun is setting behind him and he is writing a V-mail, or victory mail, home. The untold story here is the censorship of the soul. Soldiers couldn't write about their location, casualties, or the true nature of combat. So, they created a coded language of emotions. They wrote about the weather, the food, how much they missed the family dog. This photo reclaims the story of emotional isolation. This man is surrounded by thousands of troops, yet he is utterly alone with his thoughts. He is trying to protect his mother in Iowa or his wife in Georgia from the truth of what he has seen. He is carrying the burden of the war so they don't have to. The echo here is the gap between the reality of Normandy and the story told back home. The soldier looks exhausted, his posture slumped. He is trying to bridge the Atlantic with ink, knowing that no matter what he writes, he can never truly explain the sound of naval warfare rockets or the smell of burning hedgerows. It asks a tribute to the silent burden carried by the greatest generation. The decision to remain silent so that others could remain innocent. These 5 photographs to waiting men. The sleeper in the roots, the medic's hands, the girl in the doorway, and the letter writer they don't appear in the official reviews of Operation Overlord. They don't move the front lines on a map, but they reclaim the American story of Normandy from the abstract to the specific. They remind us that an army is not a monolith of steel. It's a collection of frightened, brave, exhausted, and compassionate individuals. By dusting off these forgotten snapshots, we hear the echoes of the past more clearly. We hear the heartbeat of the farm boy, the sigh of the piano teacher, and the scratch of the pen on paper. These are the stories that define the true cost of freedom. They teach us that while history belongs to the victors, the truth belongs to the witnesses. And through these photos, we finally see what they saw. Thanks for joining us on this journey. If these stories moved you, please subscribe and hit the bell icon to discover more hidden histories with us. We'll see you in the next one.